This is a creative piece from Scribers Hive Europe, giving the youth a voice that matters.
Here we have an illustration, and we're going to discuss what it means.
So my name's Asyia, and we've been given this piece that has some illustrations on it. There's a padlock and then a hand and then an open padlock, and the most important central part of the piece is the hand, which seems to have 3 countries represented on it: Poland, Estonia and Romania, upon which there are religious symbols and a key. And outside of that there's a communism symbol and something that seems to represent media.
Hi, my name is Ruma. When I look at this image in front of me, I'm thinking that the locked key, in order to unlock the padlock, it's important to work together with other countries and the people within our community, and have interfaith dialogues and work together to come up with a way that we can fight oppression. And one of the ways of doing that is by using media. So in this image here, we can see different kinds of media that we can use in order to communicate our thoughts and feelings and come up with creative solutions to deal with the oppression that these countries were facing. So for example, there's an image of a camera, a phone, the news, the TV, and there is like a speech mark or speech sign with a person inside, which indicates the importance of communicating, speaking, having that honest conversation with others.
Hi, my name's Yussuf. Since everyone's been already stated what the picture looks like, I think it's important to talk about history and the fact that in communism-controlled states, you don't tend to have that freedom of press, and the fact that there's a speech bubble here, where nowadays social media and I'm sure there's political prisoners that probably escaped. So that's one aspect where you can see that something's been unlocked in realistic terms, where people have been released from prison.
Yeah, I think it's important to discuss the importance of history in this piece of illustration, because it's very clear that there's a distinct idea of communism and the effects it's had on these Eastern European countries, which during a large part of the 20th century were under the Soviet Union. And for a lot of that time they didn't have freedom of press because USSR wanted to maintain control over these satellite states. And it's understandable from the detrimental effects that the Soviet Union had on these Eastern European countries, that now that they've been released from the Soviet Union, they are looking to freedom of press, freedom of media discussion to rebuild their societies and be able to live a different life to what they have experienced in the 20th century. So it's a clear acknowledgement of wanting to use the key of freedom of speech, freedom of press, etc., to get rid of the dark days of the past.
Yeah, and also on the picture you can see that every country has their distinct flags. So once upon a time they did have their own sense of identity, and the way the hand works is that everyone has their unique fingerprints. So the fact that each individual finger has like for example, you got the Polish flag, the Romanian flag, Estonian flag on each different finger. I can also relate that to the fact that we all have a unique code on our hands.
In addition to having the flags on the fingers, on the fingertips of those 3 fingers, we can see the religious symbols. And I think for me that means having the freedom to practice your religion, the cultures in your country, and being able to embrace what makes you unique from the other countries, and being able to live with one another and accept that and show respect to one another. Having that, all of that on that hand, for me, it's like a key for unlocking, staying unlocked and not becoming isolated and under oppression.
Yeah, so I think like because you've got the hand with each flag on the same hand, and then you've got the lock on one side and the lock unlocked on the other side, it's something about all coming together as one is the key to like finding freedom, or yeah, that's what I get from it.
I think it's interesting to look at this in the context of modern society and how we view sort of communism in the 20th century, Russia and Eastern European countries and the Soviet Union, and put that in contrast with what we're seeing today with the European Union and especially Brexit and the division that that's caused. So, for example, in the curriculum, and to an extent it's valid that the Soviet Union has been criticised heavily for the treatment it's done of the satellite states and the oppression that it's caused. Interestingly, during that time, especially during the 1960s, they established things that were similar to the European Union, something called Comecon and other different groups that are in parallel to things such as NATO and the European Union now, but we don't seem to put in Western society, European Union, NATO and the UN in a terrible light. In fact, they're seen as something that promotes unity and prosperity, but clearly we're seeing the fractures reflected in the West now, as we've seen during the 20th century with Soviet Union and Russia. So maybe in the next 20, 30 years' time, we'll be seeing this kind of interpretation, but instead of seeing Romanian and Polish and Estonian flag on the hand, we'll be seeing the British flag, the French flag, the German flag. So I think it's a matter of putting it in the context of history and media bias.
Thank you very much for that wonderful discussion, and the views expressed by everyone here was very unique, and the illustration will be something that you guys can take home and give your own opinion, hopefully.